I'm Warren, and one of the current projects we're going through is rebuilding this old Case IH version of a New Idea mower. And we've had a few things, we got a screaming deal on it, but that means there's a gazillion things broken that we have to go through and fix. So we've gone through in this last summer, my lovely cameraman and I went through and we replaced the PTO shield on it so the hay doesn't pick up and wrap around the shaft. It was missing the front shield for the gearbox intake, so we're going to go through and at some point we're going to go through and make sure the slip clutch is working and greased and lubed. And today we're going to go about fixing up everything we need to put the shield on. So the big thing is apparently when that shield got lost, everything here got bent to hell. So half of what I was doing while the cameraman was figuring out what he was doing with the camera was trying to figure out how we're going to go about straightening out the mounts for the shield. And sometimes, well, apparently we're going to have to do some welding at some point. Now, two mounts are great, top mount's crappy and needs to be welded on. Well, for right now, it will do. The joys of junk equipment, you never know what you're going to find, and sometimes you get way more than you bargained for. In this case, you never know what's going to be broken, and the joy of feeding cows, you can't lose metal. Oh, you end up having hardware issues.
When we go hit cows.
No, we're going to fix stuff today, buddy. So the nice thing is the extra old mower bolts for the blades actually fit this, so you didn't have to go buy any hardware when you have a gazillion extra. Nothing like Chinese aftermarket parts to brighten your day and make it more interesting. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, joys. So the big problem with these IH mowers are the fact that they windrow, but they don't windrow extremely well. So when you're cutting heavy grass, you end up having the windrow pretty much falling almost exactly where this gearbox universal sits. So when you're hitting those windrows, they have a habit of wrapping right up around either the shaft or the universal joint or the slip clutch. And next thing you know, you have a hay ball sitting here and thrashing the equipment and going to blow either a bearing or it's going to catch on fire. So the big thing is without the shield, unless you're cutting crappy grass that's barely anything there, it's really hard going. So the farm that had it on, that I got it from out west, they did alfalfa cuttings and I think they stayed pretty much on top of it, so it wasn't that thick. Versus out here, we usually do 2 cuttings and that first crop is so thick and so high, it rubs on the bottom of a 1066. So it's going to be right in the middle of the shaft. So hopefully with the shield on here and the new PTO shaft, we are good to go without any major issues. So the only thing we're going to have to do, because it looks like we're going to have to get a drill and drill a new hole in the side for a different mounting bolt. And besides that, this fits pretty well because this is all the way in max in mode. It swings out from here and it's not even touching the shield, so things are good. The question I'm having is, it looks like it's designed to have a second little bit of a shield to go underneath this corner. And it looks like there's a series of little bolt holes to cover that side. So might end up having to make something to cover that hole up and make it as hay-proof as possible. But already with the shields it has, it's much better shape than it was before. So we'll come back to it after we get a drill and get a hole done. We figured out how to get it to fit. So the older gray model, New Ideas, the mounts actually, flanges are designed apparently going backwards. So you don't need to drill a new hole. It just has to take the mounting brackets off and flip them over. So the fun thing is this thing is still currently made, so they've done some slight changes, but it still works. So now that we get to do this again for the last time, we get the fun of trying to line up all these stupid little clips. Hey, Warren. One down. You trying to help, Roger?
I can help.
Hold on a second. All right.
I can to help.
Nice. We're gonna put that on there in just a second, buddy. So this last summer, since I didn't have the shield to run it on, we had the new PTO shaft. I just ratcheted a lovely bungee cord on here, and that way the PTO shaft wouldn't just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. The shield would actually, I should say, the shield would actually stop. But now that we actually have the shield that it's supposed to be on, we can actually put PTO shaft shield onto something besides a Jimmy Ridge bungee cord. So the most important thing that most people are going to look at with these new idea mower type mowers is the fact that they run individual pod systems. So instead of having a shared cutter bath like a Kuhn or a John Deere Moco or even the New Hollands or whatever you're pretty much running from Krone, they all used pretty much a shared bath series back in this vintage. The newer ones, yes, I think Krone runs a separate bath for its individual gearboxes, but most of them are still using a universal system. So if you blow the gear set in one, the oil is contaminated and can ruin the bearings on everything, and before you know it, it's all gone. So the nice thing about this old school system is everything is set up by these pods. So in it, we have what they call the turtle, and that sets on top of what I've already removed, this lovely basic gear set. So inside there is this lovely, what they call EPO grease or corn head grease. It's not quite oil. It's not quite the regular axle grease we're all used to going through and on our equipment. So it's pretty much close to being at oil, and you can watch it barely flow on my finger. Pretty much at oil temps, it's almost semi-solid. But as soon as it gets warmed up and the machine starts going, it turns into oil and it lubricates everything. So the old style ones that's actually designed to be brown corn head grease. So it's not that this is contaminated and filthy, it's just what it was. And the new stuff that we have is leftover bottle is more of a clear yellow. So the fun part is I don't know when this was serviced last, and since this was made, I think the year 1989, it's been around for a while. So half these pods are new style, have been replaced. A couple of them are old school, and I wish I had been recording and showing those. So out of all the original, 7 pods, 2 are left from 1980s. And the rest of them have all been wrecked at some point and replaced. So I got everything serviced to here, and to service it, all you're looking at is what's going on inside this pod. So if you look in here, this one is pretty well cleaned out. So this corn head grease is supposed to be sitting either at the bottom of that shaft or in the center of the shaft that goes through that pod. In this case, it is probably ½ inch below. There's still some in there, don't get me wrong, there's still lubrication, but it's about half the level it's supposed to be according to the service manual. So there's a couple different theories on this. So I have some relatives that run these for several years, and instead of going with the standard EPO grade grease, they actually make their own. So they take about half regular high temp axle grease and half gear oil, and they blend it and mix it up. And they've been running it that way for years and swear by it as a direct replacement. Since I was already buying all my kit parts to go through and replace this, they had the cheap EPO grease. I just went ahead for the first time of doing this, buying what was supposed to be in here, and I'll worry about blending and doing things differently in the future. So the only thing you have to do when you're actually checking and servicing these, besides the engine oil or the oil level, is making sure that the bearings on either side of the pod are good. So to do that, all you have to do is take a short bar, and let me get the shim out of there before I destroy it, and go right underneath that main drive gear and just lift up on it. If the bearings are good, there'll be no play. I'm shaking the whole mower. If they're bad, you can actually see it shift and move and slide around. So every one of these so far has been awesome on what's going on with the main shaft. The only issue we've run into, and as I've been checking, is this one pod has a problem with the bearing inside of it. So this one will lift up. So none of the other ones will do that. So we can come through and just test. There is zero play. Shake the whole machine. Same thing for all the bearing sets all the way to here. So this one I'm actually have to play around with and see if I can take it apart and see if there's a snap ring that's come out of place or if the bearing's toasted, which probably is, and get to see about replacing that. But besides that, I'm pretty amazed from 89 to 2021, we're basically looking at a, what, almost 32-year-old machine. That is pretty amazing that it is still up and functioning. So the simple pods were everything we've done, what we have left, and that's what we're going to take a few minutes to do today is we have to take a shield off before we can get at what's going on with the turtle itself. The other issues we were running into is a couple of these turtles were cracked, so we're going to have to go through, take it to the shop, grind them out, re-weld, and grind them smooth, and see if we can reuse these turtles. Yes, the turtles are available. I didn't realize there was cracks on a couple of these. I should have done a better job looking when I was going to order parts, or I would have just replaced it. But since we're on a little bit of a budget, we have welding wire, so we're going to go ahead and fix that. And this turtle as well has a couple cracks we're going to go out fixing. But nothing I wouldn't expect on a 30-year-old machine that's covered some miles. So we're going to go through and see about taking this guy off next. But that's the key thing. So biggest thing is once a year, you go through in the wintertime, check the levels there. If you want to swap the grease out, there's nothing about when they change it. I'm just doing it because it's 30 years old and I have no idea how old that oil's in there. But it's just make sure it's at the level of the bottom of the shaft or up to the center is the ideal levels for it. EPO grease, or you can try that lovely blend of 80W90 gear oil mixed in with some synthetic or whatever axle grease you run. And that's pretty much it. Check in tolerances and make sure the pod's good and we're good to go. So, well, the fun part of working on things that you should own an owner's manual for, but you don't, is I know the shield has to come off. I'm not sure exactly how it comes off. So we're just gonna dig out what I should have cleaned up last year when I got done, but welcome to life and some of the things that should have been maintained didn't get caught up with. So we got 3 bolts, 2, couple bolt there. All right, joy. So I guess we'll start off with the easy ones out here in the back and then we'll work ourselves around. So most everything on this thing is 9/16, so that makes the choice of what we're gonna use pretty simple. And since I'm going to use the fast ratchet here, obviously the 2 bolts on the side, and of course it's going to take a deep socket. So I'm going to go grab that. Of course. Huh. What's that about the camera being on? Nothing goes quite right. It's pretty amazing. All right. Let's do the things that you're not supposed to do using the ratchet and the hammer. Got a lot of things that never go quite right. Well, this would have been nice to stick the cameraman back inside the mower for a second, but let's see if we can do this without him. We're good. Maybe we'll get it. Alright, enough of that. Get that bolt out. Done. What's wrong, buddy?
Can you hold my screwdriver?
Yes, I can. Hold on just a second, buddy. You have a flat one? No. All Phillips. We got 2 more over here that we can see.
2 more here.
All things you're not supposed to do with tools.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna have to get an extension real quick. There we go.
You almost lost it.
I almost lost it. Whoa, how did I almost lose it, buddy?
You lost it.
Did I now?
You lost it.
I lose it?
Yeah.
Well, the best part about having kids is you never lack for a radio. Between that and the teenagers.
I'm gonna buy one.
You're gonna buy one of these?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, probably by the time you're old enough to worry about it, you probably might need to buy one. Dad will probably have worn this thing out again.
Come on, Dad.
Alright, that is so rolled. Hey, nice. wants to see what shape all these things you can't typically see are in. That adjusting chain is actually pretty tight. Nice. Oh. Careful what you call dumb there, Roger. Thankfully nothing's broken off yet.
Come down, slow. Come down.
You trying to knock the snow off this thing? Just don't knock any off the barn roof. We don't want to get out of snowbank. So the new updated models, when I was looking online, this does have a little bit of a feed issue in this corner. Is they've gone through and they actually have welded, it looks like, about 2 or 3 times the number of little strips to feed. Since these are pretty worn out, one of the things I might do while we're fixing things is, all I have is some rebar, is take some rebar and I might add a couple uprights in there. And since they're already running that lovely diagonal to it, it's probably going to match to them and just come through and add twice the number of little strips in there. And see how that does. So, let's see if we can get this on. Of course. Maybe that's the reason why there's a dip to one side. Alright. Nice. Nothing too crazy. Pretty easy to add some new ones while I'm at it. I might put a new bead down the front edge of that so it's got something to bite onto hay with instead of being completely round. So, besides that, looks like the standard turtle. Let's see how the play in that bearing's looking. Hey, one we don't have to repair. So we're gonna stop here, start over with how you go about pulling these turtles off, since it takes a little bit of doing. So we're continuing on this lovely old new idea type mower, and we get the last turtle that we just pulled all the shields off from for the end cap here, and now it's the same as the rest of them, as we're gonna go about pulling out the bolt that holds down the turtle. So what we're gonna do is, typically this turtle would be here, and I'd wedge my lovely 3/4 inch extension between the two, and we pop it right off easy. Since that turtle we got to do more work on, and I can't just put it right back, I'm gonna go ahead and skip backwards. The manual says to take and wedge a piece of wood in here, and usually I get it caught in a second turtle. That's all it takes. But there we go. Alright, so once we get this lovely nut off that retains the turtle here, oh, we have to fix that. So there's a scraper here that goes with that feeder, and it looks like there's been a few things that have tried to go around that that's not supposed to go around. What's wrong, big guy? Drop your screwdriver in the snow? That's not good. Nice. Take a look. Knife stops are still there. You can reuse those. Just gotta re-weld that cracked end. Not bad. So that'll be easy. So ideally, if I've been smart and pressure washed this last spring, last fall, it's be all clean. I wouldn't be dealing with shit worrying about falling my gearboxes, but yeah, don't require thinking ahead too far. It's actually the first mower I haven't pressure washed at the end of the season in my life. It's not a good feeling. So, cool thing is, this is another one of those original pods. That makes 3 out of the 7 are the original. So the original style run a little Allen key bolts down through. So it makes us have to change up how we go on it a little bit. So instead of using regular sockets, we get to swap over to my specialty bag of knives. So now one of these we've been using. 1/4 inch. Nice. Let's see what we do here. So the fun part is getting those lovely Allen keys out. Whew. Thankfully it came. Alright. I went ahead and I knew there was a mixture I ordered extra new bolts, and knowing that they're a little funky to get out, I just didn't want to keep putting used little tiny bolts in here that I'm gonna have problems with. Oh, large. All right. So we're gonna see if we can get that out of there without finish stripping it out. Oh, thank you, Lord. We don't have to drill and tap anything. Well, as the saying goes, so that's what we talked about going through. Is usually there's a shim between the top and the housing, and that shim is just to set the backlash, which is a fancy way of how much slop there is in that gear housing. So in there, you can see this one is actually close to the proper level. It's at least up to about a quarter way up the shaft level, unlike the other pod we just showed you that was near empty. So that's what it pretty much looks like. So the fun part, oh, nice shot. Good thing you didn't put that in the gearbox. Nice snowball, buddy. You're doing really good. Here, can you catch it? Not quite. All right, so we talked about looking at the fluid levels, which we did. The next part, unfortunately, is what I just did off camera, is you get to go through and test for the bearing play. And we have a lot of slop. So you can sit there. I don't know how well that camera picks it up, but it's moving almost 1/8 of an inch. Pretty good wobble. Oh, yeah, you can see that. It's sitting there sloppy as all get out. So, kicker is we lost some bearing retainers and everything else. So, thankfully, it's the last pod in the series, so we don't have to dismantle everything to get to it. But it looks like I get to order some new parts. So, the fun part is getting parts right now is a little funky, and some things aren't available. Usually the drive shaft through the whole cutter bar is available, and right now when I looked online at my favorite parts source, spinedoctor.com, there is no current shafts available. So I am going to have to do some computer work and see what the bearings, retainers, and the springs and everything look like. They're going to cost, and see about ordering those. So the lovely bookkeep for the farm, aka the wife, is going to have a fun time having me explain how I need to buy a bunch of new parts. Not gonna be fun. We have a project there repairing the bottom half. We got a project over there repairing the level 8. Of course, it's not gonna wiggle that much right now. The bearings inside of that. So between the two, we're gonna have a lovely time repairing both halves of the module. So, but we get everything nice, new blades and everything all fixed up until these last 2 pods. So we'll pick back up with fixing some other things.